Today we're taking a look at the latest midsize sedan from Toyota. This is the 8th generation Camry, and it was introduced back in 2018 with a complete overhaul of the design and the specs. With this generation, Toyota attempted to detach the Camry from that reputation of boring car for senior citizens, and instead tried to turn it into a sportier, more fun car without compromising too much on practicality. Now, since there are already plenty of reviews of this car out there, I'm not going to just regurgitate the specs and features like some f***ing parrot. Instead, I'm going to try to give you my perspective on what it's like to own this car and use it every day as a daily driver. So stay tuned as we take a look at the latest Camry and take it for a spin. This car in particular is a 2018 model year, but everything I'll cover in this video applies to the 2019 and 2020 models as well, since they haven't really changed anything since then. This Camry is available in like 10 different trims with dozens of options and colors to choose from, so there's just too much to cover in a single video. Just know that this one in particular is an XSE V6 trim with a driver assist package option. Let's start with the looks. Because this is part of the sportier S trims, the design is pretty aggressive. Let's be honest about the front end, it's definitely not the prettiest. In my eyes, it seems to be way overstyled with too many shapes and features. These horizontal pieces that run across the front grille, for example, pretty unnecessary, and I think the car would look a lot better without them. You also have fake vents here on the sides. The grille itself has a nice pattern. This is the front camera for the bird's eye view camera system, which is part of the driver assist package. We'll see how that works later. Radar sensors for the adaptive cruise control and the pre-collision system are hidden behind the front emblem. The camera for the lane departure system is up there by the rear view mirror. Now the rest of the exterior is actually really nice. The side profile is aggressive. We have a nice roof line, strong body curves all along the sides and above the wheels. The rear three-quarter is probably the best angle to view this car from. We have nice proportions with these 19-inch alloy wheels with low-profile 235/40 tires all around. Later we'll see how the ride quality is with these, and spoiler alert, I'm not a huge fan. I didn't like the wheel design very much when I first got the car, but it has grown on me since then, so now I think it's pretty cool. We have a nice rear end, again very aggressive. I love the quad exhaust and the tail lights. We have a small integrated spoiler. All lights in this car are LEDs, by the way. These plastic vents in the back are a bit controversial. Most reviews I've seen really hate on these. I'm not a huge fan of them myself. I would probably like the rear end even more without them, but I really don't mind them too much. They're not that ugly or intrusive. Now, these were my personal observations on the looks. But how is the design of this car perceived by other people? What do people think of it when they see it on the streets or ride in it for the first time? And I'm talking about regular people, not car enthusiasts, you know, your friends, coworkers, family. So when they walk up to the car for the first time, I often get the, "Is this a Toyota?" They seem surprised because it really does not look like any other Toyota, especially compared to like previous generations. When I ask them what they think of the design, they usually say something like, "It looks very unique," or "It looks impressive." Some people said it looks better than a Toyota, but nobody has ever said it's beautiful. Nobody has ever said it's ugly either. People won't mistake it for a luxury car, but it just has a striking, sort of aggressive design that certainly makes it stand out. Before we move to the interior, let's take a quick look at the engine bay. Powering this 8th generation Camry is a newly designed, naturally aspirated 3.5-liter V6 engine with dual injection technology, meaning it doesn't just have direct injection, but it also has port injection. So you have improved performance, improved fuel efficiency, and virtually no carbon buildup on the backside of the intake valves. This engine makes 301 horsepower at 6,600 RPM and 267 pound-feet of torque at 4,700. Very healthy numbers, especially when you consider that it comes with the reliability of a Toyota engine. And we will see how it actually performs when we take it for a test drive later. This Camry is also available in two other engine options. One is a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder engine, and the other one is a hybrid with the same engine. Except for the hybrid models, which have a CVT, all other trims, including this one, are equipped with a 8-speed automatic transmission. No manual is available. For the fuel economy, the V6 is rated at 22 miles per gallon in the city, 33 on the highway, and 26 combined. I've had this car for about 2 years now, and my overall average since the day I got it has been about 25 miles per gallon of mixed city and highway driving, so just below the rated MPG and not bad for a V6 with so much power. Fuel tank holds 16 gallons, which equates to about 400 miles of range with my average MPG. If you really want a naturally aspirated V6, there aren't that many options left in this segment, with the majority of competitors having switched to Turbo 4s. Before we take a look at the interior, let's have a quick listen to the exhaust note. Here's a quick look at the key fob before we step into the car. Pretty standard looking fob, nothing too special. Luckily, you can just hide it in your pocket because this car has a smart key system with keyless entry and start. So you just grab one of the front handles to unlock the car and touch this area to lock it. If you have an active subscription to the Remote Connect service, you can control some of the features of the car from a smartphone app, like locking and unlocking it, locating it, remote starting the engine from anywhere in the world. My trial for this service has expired, and I didn't feel like paying the $8 a month was really worth it for me, so sorry, I can't actually demonstrate this feature for you. Let's move on to the interior now. Step-in height is pretty low, which I like, but I've had a few elderly people complain that it was a bit hard for them to get in and out of the car. At first glance, the interior looks very premium. There's nice leather and soft materials everywhere, where you can see at least. It is synthetic leather, not real leather, which is fine to me, spare some animals. Seats look good and are very comfortable. Push button to fire up the engine. I really like the design of the center console with these wide vents here and this silver trim on the right. It looks very unique. Now when you actually touch stuff, you realize it's not the best quality. This is all plastic over here, and the knobs don't feel very premium. I am a big fan of the gauge cluster. You have really nice traditional analog gauges on the sides, tachometer and engine temp on the left, speedometer and fuel on the right. And then you have this big screen in the middle. Resolution isn't the highest, but it shows a lot of good information. It's just not very customizable. But very briefly here, using the up and down buttons on the steering wheel, you can toggle between fuel efficiency, driving assist, audio, vehicle status, and settings. Leather wrapped steering wheel feels very good. There's also a 10-inch heads-up display that shows your speed and a few other things, which is pretty nice once you get used to it. Over here you have physical buttons and a separate display for the dual zone automatic climate controls. In the front, the seats are electronically adjusted and they are heated, a feature that I've barely ever used here in San Diego. I would much rather have ventilated seats, but that's not an option. Same goes for memory seats. You gotta step up to an Avalon or to a Lexus to get these features. Down there is a Qi wireless charging tray with a hidden storage compartment underneath. This doesn't stay in place for me anymore. It's pretty disappointing since I barely ever used it. I wasn't expecting interior components to start failing this early in a Toyota, but I'm sure the dealership will take care of it next time I bring it in for a service. You have one USB port and a 12 power outlet down here. There are two more USBs hidden in here in the center armrest. No crazy dial or buttons to shift into gear, just a solid traditional shift knob. There's an okay sized glove box. The infotainment screen is alright. This is the larger of the two options that Toyota offers, and even this one isn't really that big. The fact that it's integrated in this big panel makes it look even smaller, really. It also isn't very wide, and because the resolution isn't super high, it makes it feel just a little dated already. But the worst part is just the stock integration with smartphones. This Entune system is just so bad that I stopped using it a few months after I got the car. But luckily you don't have to use the stock system because there is now Apple CarPlay and hopefully soon Android Auto as well. Right, Toyota? Like I mentioned, this car has the optional 360 degrees bird's eye view camera system. It's nice to have and it definitely helps to avoid hitting curbs or other objects when you're parking. But man, is this resolution trash. My USB webcam from 2003 had a better quality than this. The JBL sound system is alright, but I was expecting it to be better. At louder volume there's a lot of rattling from the plastic panels on the doors and under the rear windshield. So when it comes to some of these features on the interior, it definitely seems that they prioritize quantity over quality. There's a bit of interior lighting that's pretty cool. One of the best features of this car in my opinion is the panoramic glass roof. Honda really missed out by not offering this feature in the latest Accord. It really makes the whole cabin feel a lot more open and premium. I don't sit back here very often, but if I had to, it would be quite alright. The seats are comfy, you have 2 climate vents. I'm 6 feet tall and I have enough headroom and legroom. No complaints back here, except that sometimes when I have 2 people sitting here in the back with no one in the middle, the car thinks that someone is sitting here too and the seatbelt warning won't stop beeping. So the sensor is just a bit too easy to trigger here in the middle seat. To pop the trunk, you either push a button on the inside, you hold down the button on the key fob, or you can press a hidden button here above the license plate. The trunk opens up on its own and it goes very far back, which is nice. There are about 15 cubic feet of volume in here, and you get a temporary spare tire under the trunk floor. You can also drop the rear seats, which are split 60/40 if you want to get bigger items back here. So that's pretty much it for the interior and exterior overview. Now it's time to take it for a spin and see how it actually drives. First thing you notice driving the 8th generation Camry is that visibility out the front is excellent. The A-pillars are narrow, you have very big front side windows with no quarter glass. I really like this, just a single large panel. Visibility out the back, however, is not that good like in a lot of modern cars. The rear window is pretty small and the C-pillars are wide. Blind spot monitoring definitely comes in handy here. This car has 3 driving modes. Eco and normal are pretty similar. In Eco mode, throttle response is reduced and shift points are lowered. Switching to Sport, the steering gets heavier, throttle becomes more responsive, and gear shifts happen at higher RPM. This car doesn't have adaptive dampers, so nothing changes in terms of handling with the different driving modes. I normally start the car up in Eco mode, switch to normal once the engine is warm, and only use Sport if I'm trying to pass someone or have a bit of fun. In that case, I also put the transmission in Sport and change gears manually using the paddle shifters on the steering wheel, which are plastic but actually feel pretty nice to the touch. Unfortunately, the car will still upshift on its own if you hit redline. When you have the shifter in D, the transmission is generally smooth and decently fast to downshift when needed. It is definitely tuned for fuel economy. It's always trying to keep the RPM as low as it can. Even in Sport mode, it normally shifts below like 3000 RPM unless you really push it harder. As many people report, it does have issues at lower speeds where, for example, if you're almost coming to a stop and then accelerating again, it will downshift kind of roughly and hold the gear a bit too long. It's a little annoying, but you get used to it. Acceleration in this car is really strong and linear thanks to that naturally aspirated V6. Reported 0 to 60 times is 5.8 seconds. Let's see here what we can do with a quick launch. I'm gonna turn traction control off, transmission and driving mode in Sport. Yeah, most of the time you will get a ton of wheel spin. Not much you can do about that when you have 300 horsepower and front wheel drive only, but it's not bad for a Camry and not bad for a midsize sedan in general. Brakes are fine with pretty linear engagement. They don't bite very hard as you first press the brake pedal, so they're not too confidence inspiring. I think Honda does a better job at tuning how the brakes feel. The safety features in this car work pretty well. The blind spot monitoring is definitely the most useful. The lane departure alert with steering assist is kind of inconsistent. If the lanes are not perfectly visible, it won't detect them. As you can see here, it's constantly like switching on and off here in the display. Rear cross traffic alert, parking sensors, and automatic high beams all work well, no complaints there. The dynamic radar cruise control is great in traffic, and it does its job well. It just drives the car a bit jerky sometimes and tends to leave a lot of space with the car in front of you at low speed. Handling is not bad. This car has traditional McPherson strut suspensions in the front, but it has double wishbone multi-link suspension in the back, which is nice. Now, even though this trim has the sports tuned suspensions, you still get a ton of body roll in corners. This car weighs almost 3,600 pounds with most of its weight in the front, and you definitely feel its mass when you're turning at higher speeds. When it comes to ride quality, I have mixed feelings. Let's start with the good things. Where this car shines is highway cruising. You have that big engine that pushes you up to speed without any effort. At 65 miles per hour, the engine is super smooth, no vibrations, and it's only turning at what, 1500 RPM? It gives you the impression that you're always going slower than what the tach is actually reading. It feels incredibly stable at these speeds. You barely have to do any adjustments with the steering wheel to stay right in the middle of your lane, even when it's windy. The engine is always quiet unless you push it harder. Now, the negatives are that the cabin is not too well insulated, so you do get quite a bit of road noise and wind noise. And the other big negative for me are the suspensions combined with the low profile tires. Sure, the tires look good and probably help with cornering a bit, but they make the ride quality so rough on broken pavement. When you're driving over bumps or potholes, even at low speed, the whole cabin shakes and you'll hear all the plastic panels rattling against each other. I've driven over potholes that in other cars you would just barely feel, and in this car you feel like you have to pull over to make sure you didn't just destroy your shocks or wheels. So overall, this car is a great package full of features with a bit of fun sportiness and the promise of long-term reliability. At first glance, the interior looks great and things are well built where it matters, but because this is a Toyota and not a Lexus, you will discover that things just aren't as refined as you'd expect. You can see this with the cameras, the displays, the sound system, the road noise, transmission and throttle performance. But when you sum everything together, what you have is an overall very capable car with its strong engine, great comfort and safety, nice variety of tech features, and aggressive styling. Now, all of this comes at a price. This car had an MSRP of around $37,000, and if all you care about is having a reliable sedan with a low-stress V6 engine, this car is an amazing choice. However, for everybody else, this is a tough car to recommend at this price point. On one hand, you're getting into entry-level luxury cars territory, and while those cars won't have the number of options that this car has, they will have more refinement, better quality in the features that they do have. And of course, you get the glamour of a luxury vehicle. On the other hand, you have lots of strong competitors from within the same segment. You have cars like the Honda Accord that achieves similar, if not better performance using smaller turbocharged engines, so they're lighter and handle better. You have the Mazda 6, which has better styling and a more refined interior. I think for most people, this car makes a lot more sense in its lower trims, without the V6, without the low profile tires, without the 360-degree camera. It's in the $26,000 to $30,000 range where you're getting the most value for your money. So I hope you enjoyed this video and maybe learned something new about the 8th generation Camry. If you have any questions about the car, please let me know in the comment sections below. Also, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. I'll see you next time.